But then what happened was, as the modern world came along, we began to get interested in the Middle East because the Middle East had something that we wanted: oil. And as we began to go over into the Middle East for oil and start developing pretty good relationships with the people over there, when I was growing up, no one knew you knew Muslim was a religion, but you didn't ever see any of that stuff on television. We were all talking about the fall of the Iron Curtain in Russia and all that kind of stuff, not terrorism, not Islam. We didn't know anything about it. Our government was over there, but it was purely political and financial, and let's form treaties, so we'll give you money and you give us oil. And that's how it began to develop. But as the East and the West met each other in that way, the Muslims began to read a lot of our writings. And a lot of our writings were anti-Christianity. And a lot of our writings were look at how evil the Crusades were, and look how evil America is, and all this kind of stuff. And a group of them started reading this. And they started then combining that with the Islamic writings, and they began to read about how bad America was, because all the liberals writing about America are talking about how horrible Christianity is and how horrible America is and all this kind of stuff. And they begin to read it, and they begin to say, hey, maybe we should go back over there and stop this infidel. And all of a sudden, something they never, ever, ever thought about ever, because they just were content to live in their own world like we're content to live in our own world, all of a sudden a new ideology begins to rise up as they begin, no, wait a minute, this is way more complicated. We're just kind of brush-stroking things. And so these new power bases begin to develop. And so they begin to launch terrorist attacks against America. And basically, one really important guy, Osama bin Laden, wrote a letter to America about a week or two before he attacked the World Trade Centers, and he said, we are picking up where we left off. On September 11th, the last day that we had power in Europe, we will attack you and continue what we did not do back then. And when he bombed the World Trade Centers, now, all of a sudden, we've been thrown right back into it again. And now, though, it's way messier, way more complicated, political and religious, and nobody has any idea what's going on because it's just so messy and so complicated. And I'm not going into the current conflict, but I just want you to know that's kind of the spark that lit why we've gone years without hearing about them, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're here. And it's because they got a hold of our writings. And they started reading our anti-Christian stuff and our anti-American stuff. And they started using that as a banner to wave. And then they got betrayed by us a few times, which just kind of reinforced the anti-American writing stuff. And so that's kind of weird. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not going political. I don't want to say anything more. I think both sides are guilty of making mistakes. And that's all I'm going to say. We're both guilty of doing things that we shouldn't have done with great ignorance. And that's led to big conflict. Whether it was good intention or not, I don't know, I don't care. But we're here because of ignorance and making mistakes. And how to fix it, I have no idea. So today, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. It is not the fastest growing religion in America. That's the occult and Satanism and witchcraft. But in the world, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. In 1982, there were 450 million Muslims in the world. Today, there are approximately 1.8 billion Muslims. Now, I know numbers mean nothing to us anymore because we have them thrown at us so often, but that is a huge population growth. When you look at population growth, if you don't understand numbers, because even to me, they just look big most of the time. Once you get into the millions, it's like, okay, millions. Numbers don't mean anything anymore, but that is a huge population explosion. Today, there are approximately 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide, 1 out of 4 making the world's second largest religion. I would argue it's actually more than just a second. I don't think Christianity's numbers are as high as what we make them out to be in politics. But the Catholic Church 2 years ago the Pope himself said that Islam's numbers have surpassed the Catholic numbers now. So technically now, that makes them the world's largest religion. That makes them the world's largest religion. There's actually a really good video. I don't know if I think I have it on my website. If I don't, I'll put it up. It's a little short video on population growth. And I was going to show it, but we're running out of time. But it's a really good video that shows that here's the numbers. Here's the reality. There's a couple movies, if you can find them, they're called Demographic Bomb and Demographic Explosion. And it's talking about population growth in the world today. Okay, real crash course. You need to have 2.1 children per culture to keep growing. And that just makes sense. I know this is where we get the every family 2.1 family. That's not possible. You can't have a 0.1 kid. That's not the point. The culture is 2.1. Because so if my wife and I want to replace ourselves, we have to have at least 2 kids. So that when we die, there's still the same amount of people on the earth as there was before we died. In order to grow, that means you have to have 0.1. The only way you can grow as a culture is if the culture is at least 2.1. Okay, that's necessary for growth. If you just want to stay the same numbers, you have to have at least 2. Statistically speaking, as they've looked at all population throughout world history, whenever a culture is hit 1.9, they eventually go extinct within 2 generations. It is possible to recover from 1.9 and to get back up to 2.1 and start growing, but no culture has ever done it. So it's possible, nobody's done it. Whenever a culture hits 1.3, it is actually statistically impossible for you to have that 1.3 culture to have enough children to not only replace themselves, but to begin to grow. Every single culture who's dropped below 1.9 has gone extinct within 2 generations. Right now, Europe as a whole is at 1.3. Spain is at 1.1. France is at 1.2. England's at 1.6. Germany is at 1.3. You put them all together, they're at 1.3 total. Europe as we know it, with European people, will cease to exist in the next couple of generations. They'll go extinct from lack of childbirth. And so one of the reasons is we've determined that other things than having children are more important now in our cultures. You don't see this other places. And so they're literally going extinct. America, Canada is at 1.3, which means they'll be extinct. America is at 1.9. If you add the Latino population, we're at 2.1. We only hit 2.1. So that means we've got a little bit longer, but probably in the next 3 or 4 generations, we're going to be extinct. I mean, this has nothing to do with politics. This is having children. And if we can recover from 1.9, even though nobody's ever done it, it is possible. But history tells us we will be extinct in about 3 or 4 generations. Muslims, 8.1. And one of the reasons they have more than one wife, which means they can have more children. And the main reason that Islam is growing, and this is what the media doesn't tell you, they look at growth and say, look, everybody loves Islam and they're converting. Actually, very few Muslim growth is conversion. It is mostly childbirth. They're out there basically, and even the Muslim dictators, the most violent Islamic jihadist people who are all about killing people, are saying, you know what, we could actually just stop killing people and stop having wars and we'll still take over the world just because we're having more kids than you. And they'll call it jihad by birth. And so the reality is, and there's this video, this little YouTube video, I'll try to put it on the website, it actually goes to the numbers of immigration too. So Canada in the last 10 years went from 1.2 to 1.8, and it was all Muslim immigration. And I know people who go to Germany, and Germany says they're pretty much done. Germany is the first nation that publicly announced and said, we are going extinct. There's nothing we can do. The German people will cease to exist in 2 generations. France has finally come out and said, we're going to cease to exist in 2 generations. There's nothing we can do about it. The reality is, we're entering a time period where literally white people are going extinct. And there's nothing we can really do about it. let me close on this note. I do not tell you that to scare you. I do not tell you that to make any kind of racist comment in any kind of a way. I do not tell you that to champion childbirthing, although I do think we should start having a lot more kids than what we've been doing, because that's a divine mandate from God in the book of Genesis and all throughout the Bible. And there's a reason why God gave us the divine mandate, because now we're going extinct. I don't really care if there's white people, black people, or brown people in the world. It is a fact that the first people ever created and the first people who began to populate the earth were not white. Okay, I hate white people pictures of the Bible. I hate it when every movie and every picture has white people. They weren't white. They're Arabs. Okay? I don't really care if America becomes all non-white people and we go extinct. I don't really care personally, and I mean that. I really, truly mean that. I don't care. The point is not to scare you or to become racist or any kind of stuff. The point is to say, if this is the fastest growing population because of childbirth, then they are the ones that we should definitely be sharing the gospel to, because they're the ones that are going to carry the torch to the next generation. I do not tell you this to scare you. I do not tell you this to champion the white growth again. I tell you this because I want you to know that Islam is not going away. The Arab people are not going away. They are outpopulating us, period, through childbirth. And they are coming into our countries, they're coming into our world, and that's okay because you have Christ. And it's not like a lot of Christians or Liberty University who says we'll show them how to leave the country with our guns, and they make comments like that, all this stuff. That is not the goal of Christianity, is to stop the Muslim invasion. The goal of Christianity is to expand the garden, to share Christ. And if the entire world goes back to dark-complected people like it started off that way, that's fine. All that matters is if the world becomes the kingdom of God again. And that is not through violence, that is not through racism, that's not through dominance, that's not through racial superiority or Western snobbery. That is done through humble, sacrificial, sharing the gospel, dying to them. So I don't share population numbers to scare you, although I do know that it can be kind of scary because we're comfortable with people of the same ethnicity. But I share you that to show you that this is, it doesn't matter what you think about the politics, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, the reality is not going away, and these people are desperate for Christ. Now, I'll leave in lots, I know we kind of gone late, and thank you for bearing with me, but I don't want to just cut this off right in the middle. We'll talk about witnessing later, and I'll point you to some really good videos, but you also need to know this. Right now, there are 3 groups that are converting to Christianity more than any other groups in the entire world. And they are the Chinese, the Africans, and the Muslims. And you need to know that yes, it may feel scary that Islam is pretty violent on the media, and we'll talk about that next week, of what Islam really is today. And I don't have a total answer for you, but I'll give you things to think about. And it may feel scary on the media as you watch violence of Islam. And it feels scary when you see that their numbers are far greater than anybody else. But you also need to know that God is working in them. And they are massively converting. And mostly, you know who's mostly converting? Chinese women, African women, and Muslim women. Why? Because these 3 women are the most oppressed people in the world. No matter how many, I don't mean this in any bad way, no matter how much you think you're oppressed as a woman in America, it is nothing compared to what's happening in other parts of the world. And when people get oppressed and persecuted, there's literally only one religion that truly values them and offers them hope, and that's Christianity. And I'll show you videos, but people are actually coming to Christ through visions and dreams, and not just like evangelism. And so I'll leave you with that note. We'll talk about this a lot more at the end of Islam when we talk about witnessing. But I want to leave you tonight with the reality of the facts, but at the same time the reality of the other facts, that there is massive growth of Christianity. Because the women in Islam are incredibly oppressed, incredibly devalued, and Christianity is the only thing that's giving them any kind of a hope. So this is not to scare you. This is not to throw alarms. This is just to paint the facts of their growth as well as the growth of Christianity side by side as a true reality. They're not going to hear in the media. But we'll talk about that a lot more when we get to the end of Islam. Going along with that, the U.S. population growth, many Muslim citizens want to leave Islamic religion, but know that they would be imprisoned or killed by their Islamic governments and sometimes their families if they do. So there's actually a lot more people who like to leave Islam because it is oppressive. A lot more people who like to convert, but they're scared to death of being killed because they will be killed because it is legal to kill people who leave the faith of Islam in 36 different countries in the world. In 36 different countries, not only will the government kill you, but your own family will kill you. It's called an honor killing. There are only 197 countries in the world. 36 of them is legal to kill you if you leave Islam. That's a lot. This is one of the reasons that are growing so massively. It has nothing to do with conversion, has nothing to do with the superiority of the religion, has nothing to do with the peacefulness of it. It has everything to do with the fact that they have more kids because the women are being oppressed into marriages they don't want to be a part of, and the people are too afraid to leave their religion because they're so oppressed, they're afraid they're going to die. So where did they get this idea that it's legal to kill Muslims? The Hadith. If somebody, a Muslim, discards his religion, kill him. Muhammad said that. So that's why they're growing. And this is why the gospel has such a powerful message for those people over there.